Recently, the South African Open qualifier for the Asia RMR closed qualifier concluded, and with that, Goliath Gaming, Nixa, and Bravado all claimed their spots in that closed qualifier and now have a chance to qualify for the Asia RMR itself. This video is not going to be talking so much about the actual RMR or the South African teams who have qualified or how they got there. It's more going to be talking about the news that Bravado Gaming announced after they qualified for the closed qualifier itself. Now, coming into the open qualifier here in South Africa, it was announced that Slowy would be retiring from South African Counter-Strike, from esports in general. Now, that's a whole topic in its own. I'll make a video about that. I'm going to stray away from going into that conversational point now. I want to just focus on the news coming out of Bravado. And so Slowy announced that he would be departing and retiring from the scene. And they announced they'd be using somebody called Spitfire to stand in for them or to compete in the open qualifier in their quest to qualify for the closed qualifier. And they end up bringing the Spitfire lad into the mix. Now, personally, I hadn't heard of him before this. I saw quite a few good things being said by people on social media and people who I reached out to in general. Got some pretty good feedback about him. But his tenure with the team went as far as the open qualifier, because once they actually reached the closed qualifier, they then announced that they would be sporting a different fifth for the closed qualifier itself. Now, this is where the massive news comes in, guys. Bravado Gaming have announced that POIZON, the Bulgarian AWPer, is going to be joining their ranks for the RMR closed qualifier. Now, this is unprecedented news, comes completely left of field. I don't think anybody was ever expecting this. A massive name now featuring alongside a South African organization, right? Like, this is a really big deal. POIZON, a very well-established name over the years in the international Counter-Strike scene. Like I said, only 25 years old, competed with B-Pro and Windigo, initially the Bulgarian teams, but then ventured internationally and played in Complexity, and after that Fnatic as well. So he's been a part of some really esteemed rosters, illustrious organizations, and he's created a big name for himself. But he's had a bit of a topsy-turvy career over the past few years, I'd say. You know, after his time in Windigo, where he managed to win the WESG 2018, I think it was, they got that massive prize pool. He then went into Complexity, and this is when I would say he was really like at the peak of his career, where he's getting the most attention. You know, everybody was talking about him, everybody was high on him and excited about POIZON, and rightfully so. You know, he was a reliable AWPer, but he was also fast. He was flicky, great clutch ability, seemed like he brought a lot to the team. There was a period online where POIZON was, I wouldn't say the most spoken about AWPer, but he definitely was up there, right? So he goes from his successful time in Windigo, ventures internationally, joins Complexity, and he ends up having a pretty decent tenure with them. I'd say it was slightly marred by the COVID era and period. They didn't really get to play many LAN events. They had a period online where they were just dominating and winning pretty much every online competition that they took part in. They eventually then got to start to play some LANs once things eased up, and unfortunately they didn't go too well, I don't think. And then there was the changes in the roster. You know, POIZON ended up leaving Complexity, joining Fnatic, and that's where the wheels really started to fall off for him, I would say. His time in Fnatic, unfortunately, didn't go according to plan. Played a handful of matches. I think he ended with like a 0.98 rating, and yeah, I think that just kind of spoiled things a little, left a bit of a bitter taste in people's mouth in terms of who POIZON was and what he could contribute, which was unfortunate because, you know, a few months prior to that, he was the talk of the town, one of the hottest AWPers and prospects out there. So it's been a bit of a rough period for him, I'd say. It seems like he's just been out in the wilderness over the past, like, May 2022 was where it ended with Fnatic. So, you know, he played in a few mixes since then, but he's never been in anything very stable from that point. And he's been looking for teams. You know, like I said, he's been out in the wilderness. He's been tweeting every few months, have you guys forgotten about me? I'm still here. 6 months without a team, a year without a team, you know, joined an agency. And it's just wild to me that he went so long without actually finding a team. And it can't be for a lack of offers, right? At least not at the you know, tier 3 level kind of thing. I'm sure lots of teams were knocking on his door. Maybe he wanted to go for something where he felt like he was more worthy of, you know, maybe a tier 2, tier 1.5 team kind of thing, waiting for something else to come along, which evidently hasn't. So I guess he's had to kind of just take a different direction in his career. Either way, like I said, point is, 25, he's young, he's played in some really good teams, he's got a lot of experience, he's very hungry, he has a lot to prove. And he's now got a chance to come back into the scene and remind everybody what he's capable of. So it's a very interesting pivot here for POIZON to link up with Bravado Gaming. Now, obviously, the word is that it's just on a stand-in basis. If it's deemed a success from both parties, then they will continue forwards. That was the statement made by Dimmy. And so I guess that means qualify for the RMR, carry on and see where things go from there, right? Fail to qualify for the RMR, and I doubt POIZON staying with Bravado. But yeah, coming into this now, it is a huge risk and a huge reward opportunity for POIZON, right? You think about what this means for him in terms of his career. He can now come into this team, compete at this event, and remind everybody what he's capable of, right? He can dominate. He is unequivocally the best player at this RMR qualifier. There's some other big names like Tudson, Matty, Doc as well, but there's nobody who sort of lives up to the light of POIZON. Nobody's the strongest AWPer in the competition as well. So now coming into this is where he can really look to make his mark and remind everybody, yeah, this is what I do, this is what I bring to the team, what I bring to the party. And it makes sense, right, that he's kind of taken this decision. As I said, it's quite an interesting pivot joining a team like Bravado, but I think he's realized he needs to actually take a few steps down, a few steps backwards, and showcase everybody once again what he's still made of, right? It's a big risk though. So let's look at the risk reward here for POIZON. The reward is go into the event, perform super well, drop huge numbers, qualify for the RMR, and get the town talking about you again. Get everybody, remembering what POIZON's about, what he brings to the party, what he brings to the team, and what he's capable of. If he dominates the event, let's say, ends the qualifier with a 1.46 rating, winning a number of maps for Bravado, one of the star players of the tournament, casts are talking, social media's on it, HLTV forums here or there. Now there's traction that's being gained about POIZON, right? And for good reasons as well. That could bode well for him because it just reignites that sort of that attention, I'd say. Then from there, you can continue with Bravado, play at the RMR, got nothing to lose at that point, take a scalp or two, who knows where they go from there. That's ultimately the reward of this risk. Now, the downside of the situation is, what if he bombs out, right? Like, what if he has a really rough event? I mean, he hasn't competed much in the past 2 years. I don't think he's played at any LAN events, since his time in Fnatic maybe. So it's going to be a bit of an element or a case of acclimatizing to LAN once again. So what if this goes downhill? What if it goes south? Now you've got POIZON, who played in Complexity and Fnatic before with some of the best players in the world. Now he's decided, it's not like he's playing in a tier 3 team, no disrespect to Bravado, but this is a really big step downwards for POIZON, from someone who was used to being at the tier 1.5 level for most of his career. This is a really big step down for him. And it's something that, like I said, carries a lot of risk. Because if he takes this big step down to try and show everybody what he can do, and it doesn't work out, they fail to qualify for the RMR, he doesn't put up good numbers, he doesn't clutch the way we know he's capable of, and he doesn't look like the POIZON we know, then everybody's going to be thinking, Jesus, like, if POIZON can't come into a team like Bravado at an Asia RMR closed qualifier, and he can't dominate and take over, then what is there really still left to get excited about with him? I think that's the real risk that comes into this for POIZON, is that reputational risk. It's all about the reputation right now for him. Of course, it's not just doing this, for himself personally. Working with Bravado, illustrious organization, leading up to greater heights with them as well. There's a lot more than, just his individual benefit, but I do think that a huge amount can come from this individually for POIZON, depending on the results and how this event plays out for him. Yeah, it's certainly going to be an exciting period and an exciting event. As a South African, I'm really keen. I'm very happy for the lads, all the guys who are now going to get to play alongside POIZON. It's a massive opportunity for them, and I'm sure something that they're going to be taking with both hands. You know, the brothers Viljan Marsh, Triton, Doru as well, Coach LeBishop. I'm sure they're all massively motivated. I mean, can you imagine how insanely motivated they must be right now for this closed qualifier? Are you kidding? Like, they're going to be playing with POIZON, this guy who is just so well recognized internationally, will be the best AWPer they've ever had the privilege of playing alongside, or the luxury of playing alongside. Sorry, Slowy. And it just must really want to push them to be at the best level they could possibly be going into the event, because not only is this going to be the best chance they've ever had to qualify for the RMR, but they're now playing alongside POIZON. It's like, you know, you're getting a massively talented player added to your squad who's only going to elevate everybody around them. And I also kind of feel like there's an element of responsibility from the South Africans now for POIZON as well. They need to understand, like what I just postured about his reputation and what this means for him coming into the team and into this project. They need to also understand, like, we need to do this for POIZON as much as we do for ourselves. Like, we've got a player here who has taken a big risk in joining our ranks, and we now need to pay that back by, you know, supporting him, by playing the best Counter-Strike we can, by keeping our heads, by cutting out the emotions. There's an element of responsibility now that comes from the South African players as well in terms of what they owe to POIZON. And so it's going to add some pressure to the situation, I think, but not pressure that they can't handle. I mean, they've been overseas before. They've put up some good results. They've got the experience. They've been together for a long time now as the core four. Great identity, very strong players in general. And I think that they have it in them. I think they have what it takes. But I do think that's a big facet of this whole POIZON joining Bravado kind of thing. Something else, you know, with the addition of the Bulgarian AWPer and the South Africans and now the British coach as well, is there's going to be quite a cultural sort of conglomeration going on here in the group. A bit of a super mix coming through. Whether it's going to work or not is going to be interesting to see. I mean, obviously they're not going to have much time to acclimatize being with one another. The RMR starts on the closed qualifier for the RMR starts on the 26th, I believe. And so they'll have maybe a week or so of boot camp, I'm guessing, where they'll have to get to know each other, learn about each other inside and outside of the server, integrate each other's games. No doubt they'll be doing work online, but there's nothing like the boot camp where you're actually in person, right? Try and make POIZON feel comfortable within the team as well. You know, there's a lot of love between the players in the Bravado team. They're a very close-knit group, and to try and add somebody new, not just somebody new to the team, but somebody who is from a completely different continent, a completely different culture, to try and integrate them so they don't feel left out isn't going to be easy, but is very important for the success of the team. So that's something that I'm looking forward to seeing how they play that out, is that cultural barrier. Looking at the RMR itself, now there are 8 teams. Actually, I keep calling it the RMR. You guys know what I mean. The closed qualifier for the RMR. Said closed qualifier so many times, it doesn't even sound like a real term anymore. But speaking of the closed qualifier itself, there are 8 teams who are going to be competing. 3 of them are South African, a few others from some different regions as well that have claimed their spot. I say it is the Asia RMR, right? This is the Middle Eastern closed qualifier for the Asia RMR. Either way, like I said, some recognizable names and teams, especially for us South Africans, but then there are some other well-known players internationally if you follow the tier 2, tier 3 space kind of thing. Players like Tudson and Matty from Poland are going to be competing. You've got Doc, who's in the Poggers team along with Matty as well. A couple Faced stars. There's that, I don't even know how to pronounce it. I think it's like Yi Hao or Gigi Hao. It's probably a Chinese org, and it's got the European players Davcast, Issa, Elian, Remind as well. Some of the South Africans might remember Remind from 2017 ESL Africa. Damn, he was playing with, I want to say Yala, but it might have been the other Algerian team, right? It wasn't, I don't think it was Yala. Anyway, that is not important right now. Remind is one of those players who we've competed against before, so it'll be interesting to see him there. But it's not like we're dropping tier 1.5 crazy level orgs and names. There's 8 teams, 3 of them are South African, and there's 2 spots at the Asia RMR up for grabs. So it's very realistic that we could actually see Bravado Gaming qualify for the RMR, guys, which would just be insane if you think about it. Would be a massive step forward for them. Like I said, 2 spots, 8 teams, competition's there, but it's not like it's an event where they have to play against Ents and, Liquid or Spirit or something like that. Like, I'm not even naming the highest level teams. I'm like, tier 1.5 kind of thing. Into tier, they don't have to play teams of that. Like, this is very realistic that they could make this, and I think this is a big step in the orgs sort of direction and for the players as well. Like, this is what it's been building up to. No longer is qualifying for the closed qualifier enough. Now we need to like up the ante, move the bar up one notch. Now we want to start making some inroads and reaching the RMR and getting more opportunities, right? So it's a very exciting period, a very exciting opportunity here for both Poison and Bravado Gaming. I'm going to be watching it super closely. I'm sure the players are ridiculously excited, the support staff, everybody behind the scenes at Bravado. I mean, congrats to them, honestly. Like, shout out to Bravado for landing this. This was an illustrious move. This was a move that certainly is going to be catching attention and hopefully the start of an exciting period ahead here in the Bravado Gaming sort of Counter-Strike evolution, Counter-Strike 2 and all the rest. I know that they're looking to try and move things forward and move things up. And this could really, spearhead the project and give things a massive kickstart as well. There's a lot of potential here right now going into this closed qualifier for things to definitely be taken to the next level, I'd say. And I hope they're able to realize it. I hope they're able to realize that potential. And it would bode super well for the players and the South African scene in general. But yeah, there we go. Now you know a bit more about Poison, my thoughts on, the career and what he brings to the team and what it sort of means for Bravado Gaming as well. I'm super excited. I'm high on Poison. I have high expectations. I still back him. I still think he has what it takes, but we're going to find out at that closed qualifier.